guess we're ready to start.
Wait 5 seconds.
In this phase of the project, we're going to be using the computer to compare photographs of the wall paintings in the tomb from different time periods. And the idea is to try to learn something about the areas that have changed in the last 60 or 70 years.
So do you mean change as far as increased damage?
Yeah, essentially what we're going to be trying to do is figuring out something about the rate of deterioration. Has it accelerated so that there's a lot more damage happening at the present time, in which case we need to do something about implementing a solution much quicker in the whole process.
But where do these images come from then?
These images are derived from photographs that are scanned digitally and turned into a computer file. And then we can take these computer files and overlay them and register them, put them on top of each other, and then difference them in order to find the differences that have happened from one time to the next. Learn something about where the changes have occurred in the images.
Will it be a lengthy series of pictures?
I think we're going to have pictures from about 5 or 6 different time periods.
As early as when?
1904.
Are there problems putting the images together from the different time periods?
Well, it will be a fairly difficult process in that you have to find the areas that you want in different pictures and then register and set them so that one image lies directly on top of the other image, so that when you do the comparisons, you learn something about where the changes have occurred.
What's the value of putting this into a digital format like this?
The value of the digital format allows you, once you find the change, one, to be able to measure the amount of change, to get good quantitative measurements or estimates of the amount of change that are occurring. And the other is that it allows you to do things in a much more rigorous fashion rather than doing things in just sort of, well, I think this area has changed. It allows you to set thresholds and actually do something that is more straightforward.
Is this type of damage, this is water damage, do these different variations show different levels of water damage? Is that what we're looking at, or can that be determined from these?
Actually, what I think this is I think this is areas that they've tried to fix.
Oh, plastering?
They've come in and plastered over some of these areas, and then I think the plaster is starting to wear away in the middle here again.
Let me move to a different area here. Sort of look around.
So I assume that they're attempting to see areas that they've repaired and how fast that's deteriorating also.
Yeah, but the repaired areas have not really restored the painting. They've just been an attempt to stop any further damage.
Let's move to another picture here and see if we can find something. Then again, maybe we can't. Okay, color features maybe? There we go, okay.
This is a good example right in here.
Let's move in and see if we can see some more.
So that's an area that the analysis would be done to see how
Right.
much deterioration is actually going on there.
Not only how much deterioration, but when it's occurred. Is this something that's happened relatively recently, or is this something that happened a long time ago and it has been there? Or is it an actively growing area of deterioration that we need to worry about trying to stop in the immediate future?
So the actual value of the pixel relates not only to the area of damage as far as how many pixels are involved, but also to the age of the damage.
Right.
I would never guess that.
I guess.
How many different pictures will be involved in this project?
I don't
Different
know.
murals. Guess we'll have to edit that out.
What tomb is this from?
Okay.
I don't know. Don't ask me questions I don't know the answers to. Yeah, this is getting a little bit carried away at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
these areas are going to be tough.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Anytime you have these sort of real detailed patterns and a lot of
It would be hard to set a point, a reference point to measure from.
these areas are going to be tough.
A lot of these damaged pixels are giving off the same, I mean, it looks to me the same response as a
Yeah.
lot of the hieroglyphs. So there's no real way that this can be classified or anything.
I don't think so.
It's going to have to be sort of done by hand.
No, it's not going to have to be done by hand.
I mean, as far as
Essentially what
taking
you're-
training sites. Or
It's
sit
not in the
right
mode that
the
you're
site.
thinking of where you take a training site in the damaged area and expect to classify the image.
Right.
It's more, you're going to have to normalize one image to the next
Mhm.
and then compare the values from one image to the next. Where there's a lot of change, then that becomes a good candidate for a problem area.
But
You're
you
also
still-
going to have some sort of spatial filter involved so that very small areas of change, which are likely to be just due to misregistration, somehow get filtered out. So you only look for blocks that have changed at a certain minimum width.
How close will the registration be as far as pixels? Like,
It's hard to say, but I would imagine that we ought to be able to get within one picture element. You should-
Within one pixel?
Within one picture element.
so if you're talking about small amounts of change, they're like half pixel differences, or I mean,
No,
it's from,
no.
is that a result of
the
mixed
changes
pixels?
that we'll be looking for will be on the order of 2 to 3 pixels wide.
Okay.
Something more
So
substantial.
things below that should be filtered out.
Things below that are probably just edges where the registration isn't perfect and that will be filtered out. If you scan the images of small enough size, then 3 pixels doesn't mean much.
Right.
And so it would be relatively small changes that you could still find even though it happened to be 3 pixels wide. So zoom,
Is this running
zoom,
along the floor?
Zoom up a place like this.
Has work like this ever been done before?
Like, where do you want?
Just sort of like an area right in here. See, that's an area where there's obviously some damage, and I can see sort of how wide that is. See, that's in the order of like 8 or 9 pixels wide.
Yeah.
So, I mean, things 1/3 that size, maybe you'd still be able to find. And then that's pretty small. I mean, we're looking at a
That
very
is
small
pretty
little
small.
chunk of it.
Has anything ever been done like this before?
I don't know if it's ever been done for paintings. This kind of change detection is common using,
Right.
using satellite imagery,
But not
imagery
in-
and remote sensing.
Not in the same way that this is being used here, though. The same
Sure.
in terms of paintings.
I'm not sure in terms of paintings.
When these photographs were turned into the digital images, how was that done?
It was done using an optical scanning device where essentially you send the camera, it scans back and forth across the photo, collecting all these very small measurements that are then put together into an image, into a computer file.
Does it measure, I mean, like spectral response, what we usually use?
Yeah, it measures the spectral reflectance from the photograph. Or if you use a negative, then you measure the transmittance through the negative. Either way. It's actually easier if you have a negative than if you have the actual print. But either way, it works perfectly well. All these paintings and this mess and all this deterioration going on all over the place.
And you don't know from nothing.
We don't nothing from nothing. We don't know
Okay,
where
let's-
this is from, what date it is, or anything.
Let's cover this, go back to the other, oh, you mean you don't know? This was
I don't
taken
remember.
1957, yeah.
This is the 57
this is-
photos?
okay.
That's a good.
Oh, these are the 57 photos, of course.
Is this the part you want, or?
So how about to the right, okay, I know where you are. How about to the right here, what's in here?
Let's see if I can get there. Maybe.
You can't roam any farther
Okay.
that
Color-
way.
I see,
just
that's it, yeah.
I think so. It's like
Right?
down in. Is this the right area?
That's fine, okay. Yeah. See, the difference now between the deterioration here is that in some places the plaster itself, like in this area, would have buckled up and fell off the wall. In some places the salt goes all through the plaster and affects the painting paintings themselves.
Okay.
That's a real difference, and we don't really know what in the hell controls this.
So these are more
One
like
of these
holes,
holes.
and these are more like places where there's an accumulation on the outside.
What Fritz called it, the paint would crumble. That's really the
Right.
paint layer up here,
Okay.
which the paint layer is very thin, and then with salt on it, it just buckles up and then falls over, or any touch, a little bit of whiff, or somebody rubbing against it, and so on and so forth. Because if you actually stand in here and rub that paint right there, it is pretty solid, pretty good.
It
So it
is.
doesn't crumble, not at all. Yeah, it really is.
So if you touch it,
You can touch it, and feels
good.
tight, and feels connected to the wall, and pretty good. In some other places where the salt, rather than getting out to the surface and then kind of mixing with the salt itself right on the surface, the salt crystallizes behind the 1/2 inch to an inch plaster layer, and keeps on depositing behind it like that, and then pushing it away from the wall.
Is that
It
why?
cracks.
Is that why some of these areas look stained? Like sort of, like this area looks relatively in touch, but this area appears a little bit darker.
I don't think any of these things have anything to do with that. You want to reduce it a little. I think this is something that we introduced in the machinery right here, in the digitizing business. Yeah, all of these faint light color changes are not real. Yeah, that's
There are
something
just a
that-
few very distinct colors, is that right?
That's true.
Okay.
Yeah, so that you can see that this wall here, the white, is absolutely white all the way through, and it is not as if it's not like if it is wet, it gets a little bit of a different color or anything like that. It's none of that.
It isn't. See, 'cause it
No.
kind of looks that way right through here,
Yeah.
between these two places. You see, if you look through here.
All right, okay. If there is a zone between two
Yeah.
areas, okay,
Yeah.
that's I would all right.
You'd buy that.
I'd buy that because absolutely, because it is a terribly deteriorated area of the veins,
Right.
and this is and maybe you have especially if it is a lineament or something, because most likely these things come through joints in the rock. So I would agree that perhaps behind this area there is a joint, and all of that is being.
So that's a potential area for future deterioration.
Very much so. So this would be the area that's going to fall off next, or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah. But if you say that within, say right here, there is a differences in the paint. Actually, I can see very faintly here
Yeah.
a very different in the pinkish and whitish stuff.
Yeah.
That's not real. Even
That's an
within the one,
artifact,
yeah,
sure.
that's an artifact within the just under my thumb right here, or whatever. Yeah, just this very small area. That would be an artifact. But if you're saying there is a zone in here which is a little bit cracked, and there is more of this going through it, yeah, that's quite possible.
So with the arm here, would you expect this arm to all be the same color?
Yes.
So
Can
it
you
looks like
remove
there
that
might even be
one?
two problems there.
Can you
That
put that
we
in?
have sort of
Yeah.
a bare area here. It looks
Yeah.
like.
Okay, this is a bare area. Yeah.
But you think this other part might be an artifact as well, or do you think that's deterioration?
I don't know about that one in here, because this is a very
Very
big
different,
difference.
yeah.
That's a great.
So we might have two different problems in this
That's
one
true.
area.
That's true. Yeah. Although that might again be the reflectance. The coloring here is spurious, right? All of it, because this is black and white.
Yeah.
So it might be difference in the reflectance. That is a very good point, by the way. Then maybe we should really look into differences in reflectance and what they may be due to. Because if this is one blue color, let's assume,
Right.
but this is less blue than that, there may be a reason for that, a chemical reason.
Mhm.
So maybe we should look into this business of having to look at the differences, or
Within a given area.
categorize the differences in reflectance within a small area, and look at why maybe they are like that.
Okay.
Provided that we're careful that these are real, honest to God differences in reflectance, maybe going to the originals also, and poking through the picture itself, not just from the computer.
How good were the quality of the original photographs?
Some are very good and some are questionable. I think that you do, because in some cases we are going to have either originals or very close to the originals, and this is what we should look at. We should look, for instance, last slide, from the things that we took
Sure.
this year, and then look at that, because that arm would be definitely in one picture that either I or Fritz or somebody took, and then we look into that and see whether there are honest to God differences in reflectance, even though they might be slight, they might be real meaningful. That's a good point. when I was first invited to participate in this study, it was to introduce space-age technologies to the investigation of the wall paintings of the tomb of Nefertari. First on my agenda was to view the area of the tomb from the perspective of space. So we ordered a Landsat image taken by the thematic mapper of the area and started studying it. The images explain to us much of the geology and the geography of the terrain. Here we see the channel of the river Nile and the green area of the bank around the Nile, which is the fertile valley, surrounded by deserts on either side. Right here is the airport of Luxor, and the town of Luxor is right here, and the Karnak temple. And just west of the Nile bank is the area which encloses the Valley of the Kings, and the area that we're concerned about, which is the Valley of the Queens. From the study of the photograph, we can see that the ancients selected the site well, because it is in the desert-like conditions, meaning it is dry, and it is close enough to the Nile Valley, but higher than the floodplain of the Nile. The study of the image also told us about the general terrain, in that there are several sets of fractures in here. One set is east-west, one set is northeast-southwest, and the other in the opposite direction, northwest-southeast. This structure also conveys to us that this part right here is an escarpment that is parallel to the major escarpment that bounds the Nile Valley, and it is here that we have to concentrate our studies. That was actually good news to the science research team, because of the fact that if we have to study this area in detail, and if rainwater is a factor to be considered, then we have to consider the rain that is received in that particular area only, rather than in the whole plateau to the west.
The Getty Conservation Institute and the Egyptian Antiquities Organization are jointly undertaking a scientific study and conservation treatment of the wall paintings in the tomb of Queen Nefertari, who was the favorite wife of Pharaoh Ramses II 3,200 years ago approximately. These two institutions we have put together interdisciplinary team of specialists that includes archaeologists and Egyptologists, conservators, conservation scientists, engineers, historians, and scientists from the academic field who until now have not been working in the conservation of cultural properties. The main aim of this team is to identify the causes of deterioration in the tomb and to design a conservation treatment that could be subsequently implemented. In order to achieve these objectives, the one-year study, started last September, has grouped a variety of new technologies. One of them is remote sensing, which is a direct result of the space program. Through the efforts of Dr. Farouk El-Baz, we have enlisted the support of the Boston University Center for Remote Sensing. Researchers at the center are applying space-age techniques for the non-destructive testing of the walls of the tomb. To all of us involved in this project, this is a wonderful and innovative application of new technologies.
50. Well.